Hey, what's going on, guys? Coming at you with a brand new deck profile post Maximum Crisis, and today I'll be showing you guys my Ancient Gear OTK deck. So as we go through each card you see here, the main deck extra inside, I'll explain some of my card choices, talk about what some of the cards do, and also talk about some different choices you could make for your own personal preference, especially if you're on a budget or if you're on a bit of a higher budget than I'm on currently. So we'll go ahead and get right into the deck profile. So starting off with the boss monster of the main deck, we have the 2 Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. It gets different effects if you tribute summon it by either tributing a gadget monster or an Ancient Gear monster. If you tribute it by tributing an Ancient Gear, it inflicts piercing. If you tribute it by tributing a gadget monster, it gains 2 attacks. And then if you do happen to tribute summon it by tributing your Ancient Gear gadget, it actually does get both effects. Of course, your opponent can activate spells or trap cards when this card attacks. And then at the end of the damage step, when this card does attack, you get to destroy a spell or trap card on the field, either your opponent's or your own, which can combo off really well with Gear Town. Only reason I don't play free is because it can clog up multiples. It is a card you can easily tutor out if you want with Gear Town or Fortress or Catapult. So that is why I feel like 2 is the right number. Next, we have the free Ancient Gear Wyvern, basically a Strauss deck. Anytime it's summoned, you can add an Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand. The only downside is that you cannot set cards for the rest of the turn, and you can only use the effect of Wyvern once per turn, and of course it stuns your opponent from using spells or traps when it attacks. Next, we have the free Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. This is your main OTK maker of the deck. Not only does it burn for 600 when it's normal summon, but you can also use this effect to act as a polymerization to fusion summon one of your Ancient Gear fusion monsters from your extra deck, which will usually, when you're going for your OTK, be Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. And the cool thing about that effect is it does count itself as one of the Ancient Gears required for either Howitzer or Giant. So this is a card that you want to get out as soon as possible to be able to get off those fusion plays. Next, we have the 2 Ancient Gear Gadget and then the 1 Ancient Gear Box. This engine's basically here as a searching engine for Wyvern if you need to get more Ancient Gear monsters in your hand. Basically, with the Wyvern, you search out the Ancient Gear box, and then when box is added from deck or graveyard to hand except by drawing, you get to add a Earth Machine with 500 attack or defense, which happens to be your Ancient Gear Gadget. And then with Gadget, once per turn, excuse me, losing breath here. Once per turn, you can declare either a monster, spell, or trap, and then when you attack that turn, basically, that card type is shut off from your opponent until the end of the battle phase. So Gadget's a pretty decent monster on its own, but it's mostly a card that you're wanting to search off of box for just more Ancient Gear monsters. Then for the final monsters, we have a 2 Gold Gadget and 2 Silver Gadget. Just a good way to tutor Wyvern and Hunting Hound out of your hand, and also a good way to make for some rank 4 plays. For spells, we have the Triple Gear Town and Triple Terraforming, pretty staple for any Ancient Gear deck, even before the new support. Next, we have the free Ancient Gear Catapult. This is a really good support card for this deck that this deck desperately needed. If you control no monsters, you can target one card on your field, destroy it, and then special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its semi conditions. So right away, you can either pop your Gear Town or the new Ancient Gear Fortress, get a monster off a Catapult, and then also get a monster off a Gear Town or Fortress's effect. And then if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard. Again, target a card you control, destroy it, and then get to special summon an Ancient Gear token. You unfortunately can only use one of these effects per turn. If you could use both of them in the same turn, it'd be pretty busted. But yeah, Catapult, whichever effect you're using, either on field or graveyard, just gives you access to 2 more Ancient Gear monsters to build up your count towards your requirement for Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, which is 4 Ancient Gear monsters, and he is a huge OTK enabler on his own. So overall, Catapult is a really good card for tuning out your Ancient Gears that you need. Next, we have the free Fortress. Really nice multi-purpose card for the deck. Not only does it provide protection for your Ancient Gears while it's on the field, basically when the turn they're normal or special summon, they cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, and your opponent cannot respond to the activation of their effects. But also, when it's popped off, destroyed by card effect, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand or graveyard, ignoring semi conditions. Only downside being that you're restricted to summoning Ancient Gears for the rest of the turn. But Fortress overall, just a really strong card. Helps you get around things like Trident and Masterpiece, and then it gives you a plus, of course, when it is destroyed, which usually is going to be by Catapult. Next, to support Catapult, we have the two Foolish Burial Goods. You just use this to send Catapult to the graveyard and have that ready to pop your Gear Town or your Fortress. And I don't play free because it's only once per turn and it would clog at multiples. Next, with the Double Pile of Desires for a bit of draw power and added consistency. If you can't afford these, you can easily cut them and add a couple other cards here and there to the deck. But yeah, I feel like to make this as competitive as possible, the Desires is most desirable. Get the pun? Next, with the fusion spells, we have the double Power Bond and one Overload Fusion. Most of you probably know what Power Bond does. You just fusion summon the machine fusion monster from your extra deck, and it doubles the attack points. Even though Chaos Ancient Gear Giant and Howitzer are unaffected either by spells or traps or just card effects in general, the Power Bond doubling attack is part of the summoning requirement, so you do get a 9,000 attack point Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, which, if you're doing that, you're probably going to get the OTK. I mean, there's not much that can stop that. So yeah, Power Bond's there as another way outside of Hunting Hound to be able to pull off your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Same with Overload Fusion. You can use things from your field and your graveyard. To either summon out your first giant, or after you summon your first giant, use it to summon a second, and just be able to explode for an OTK from there. And then, of course, it wouldn't be an OTK deck without double Twin Twisters. Has a double utility of not only getting rid of your opponent's back row, but you can use it to combo off of your own things, popping your own Gear Town, popping your own Fortress, popping both of them at the same time. So Twin Twisters overall is pretty good for the deck. And then for the final main deck cards, I do play a few traps. The 3 Solemn Strike and 1 Solemn Warning. I did end up cutting Limiter Removal and Max C from the main to make room for the full Solemn Quartet. There were some other cards I was considering, like Quaking Mirror Force, Book of Eclipse, and Floodgate Trap Hole, because of how Chaos Ancient Gear Giant pierces. But one of the main weaknesses of this deck is monster effects, and even against like 2 Dracos and against pretty much every other matchup, Solemn Strike is a really strong card in this format. Same with Warning. So I feel like these were pretty appropriate defensive cards to be able to protect your Ancient Gears from monster effects, be able to keep yourself alive, and just in general are really good cards. So that's it for main deck. Onto the extra deck, we have the 2 Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. You'll never really need to summon more than 3. The only time you really ever summon 2 is if you get off Overload Fusion. The triple Howitzer, it's here at 3 because it's the easiest one to summon. This requires 2 Ancient Gears. Oh, by the way, with Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, requires 4 Ancient Gears, 4,500 attack, unaffected by spell and trap card effects, and your opponent cannot activate monster effects during the battle phase. And then this card can also attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, so it can really be a strong OTK enabler to just attack over everything your opponent has. And then with Howitzer, when it's summoned, it can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. It's unaffected by other card effects, and then when it is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So even though Howitzer on its own is pretty weak, it does replace itself, and it is a level 8 as well, which can help you go into a rank 8 like Hope Harbinger. Now onto some rank 4s. Let's get substituted here. Okay, so starting off we have the 1 Castel, Diamond Direwolf, which definitely would be Tornado Dragon if I did own one. Gear Gigant X, which is just good to search out any of your lower level Ancient Gears that you need, especially Box to get your extra search for the gadget. 1 Heavy Armored Train Iron Wolf. This is a pretty neat card for any level 4 base machine deck. It can make any of your machine type monsters be able to attack your opponent directly, and it's the only thing that can attack that turn. So it's kind of funny to think about having this on field with Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, and then having that 4,500 Chaos Ancient Gear Giant be able to attack directly. And then if it does happen to be destroyed by your opponent's card, you can add 1 level 4 machine type from your deck to your hand. So overall, just a really nice support card for machine decks. Then we have the Utopia package of Utopia and Utopia Lightning. The 1 Crooked Cook, which is pretty good when you just have this on the field with, say, Gear Town or Fortress or both of them on the field, because it has an effect where you can pop all your other cards in the field. The thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to do that when you have a monster, because it does get an attack boost for all the monsters that you destroy. And if you do have a monster, it misses timing with Gear Town, because it's a really old card that misses timing for some stupid reason. So yeah, do keep that in mind with Crooked Cook, but overall it's a nice combo card with your Fortress and your Gear Town if you play it right. For the Howitzer being level 8, we do have the Hope Harbinger. And then since the new Reactor Dragon is level 9, we do play the one true Cane of all Calamities. And then finally, if we need some extra damage after we've summoned 2 Chaos Ancient Gear Giants and somehow haven't killed our opponent yet, we do have the one Gustav Max since the Chaos Ancient Gears are level 10. One thing I would suggest changing other than the Diamond Dire for Tornado Dragon would probably be taking out the Gustav Max for an Abyss Dweller, which I could not find for the life of me, so I do apologize for that. Now to wrap it up with the side, we of course have the free Ancient Gear tokens from the structure deck. 2 Gamma Seal, just a generic low attack point kaiju to tribute over Masterpiece and other annoying monsters. 2 Ghost Ogres, still a pretty good hand trap right now for just, if you time it right, you can stop your opponent's combo, dead in its tracks. The 1 Maxi in the side, I decided to side it over main it, number 1 to make room for the Solemn Quartet, and 2 because I don't want it to be dead in the main deck against something like True Dracos. 2 Book of Eclipse, I decided to go with this over like Raigeki and Dark Hole because it does combo off nicely with Chaos Ancient Gear Giant's piercing damage and also Reactor Dragon's potential piercing damage, so Eclipse can be pretty nice for not only stunning your opponent but then setting up your OTKs. And it is also can be an offensive or defensive card. The 2 Necro Valley, this is a nice side deck card against dinosaurs or against any lawn mowing deck. You do play the free terraforming, so it's really easy to get to it. You can basically play it after you do your combos of Gear Town and then just completely shut off your opponent's graveyard. The only thing that really stops in your deck is the Overload Fusion, which is at 1, and the Catapult Graveyard effect, but you can pretty easily play around that. Then we have the 3rd Twin Twisters on the side in case we're going against a really back row heavy deck. The triple Mask Restrict for going first against True Dracos, which probably could be Zombie Worlds if you so choose, since again you do play the Terraformings. And then finally, to wrap up the side deck, we have the 2 Forbidden Apocrypha. You declare 1 extra deck type, Fusion Sync or Xyz, and then if 2 or more cards of the declared type are on the field, each player has to destroy all monsters of that type. So this is a really good side deck card going first against Zodiacs, because they'll easily, when they do their shenanigans with their combo, have 2, 3, 4 Xyz on the field at once. And if you time this right, you can completely stun their plays and just stop them from being able to do anything the rest of the turn. So Apocrypha is a pretty solid card. Okay, so that is it for this brand new deck profile on my Ancient Gear OTK deck. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time.